And we'll have the opening prayer.
Let us pray. In the name of Jesus, God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this board and all that make this board happen. Thank you for these who have come to be with us. And God, we pray that you allow us to do your will and your way. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Now we'll have the pledge to the United States flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the minutes, and if there's any additions, deletions, if not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next, we'll turn the meeting over to our director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board, thank you so much. The first on our agenda to appear before us was going to be Denise Lawrence. She was updating us on the legislative changes, and so Rachel Powers is going to do us the honors. And Rachel, come on up and update us on any changes that we've had since the last meeting.
Good morning, board.
Morning.
Morning.
I am here to give the update. Denise had some trouble, so I'm just going to stand in. I'm going to go over the position on where the legislation is currently. Bill is Senate Bill 1893 and House Bill 1730. Implement an apprentice program if they didn't already have one to see what examiners where you obtain 50% of your hours in school and the notice, so it won't be going through.
So the bill, thank you anyway for your report, but the bill you mentioned concerning the apprenticeship, which one of those bills that would affect the barber industry in terms of the students?
It's right now the way it's drafted is a study.
So the bill that you're speaking of is that's the bill that that is the boards, each board would have an opportunity to study it.
Yes.
Okay, is this the one that they're talking that was introduced that the student would do 750 hours in the school?
No, sir.
Okay.
That is the one that's been taken off NOVADEX.
Oh, great. Very good. All right. Very good. Thank you.
What is the time frame for the committee processes on those? Do you have any outlay on that?
It would be laid out one. Also do send that information out via the Notify system. If the public or the licensees want to know about the legislation that does pass that affects them.
One final question, Rachel. Was the finance behind the motivation of combining both boards?
I'm not sure. That
Okay.
would be I think it was probably partially, but I will let Senator.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We will interrupt when Senator Bell gets here. So next on our list, we'll have Kevin Johnson with Paul Mitchell, the school. Kevin, if you'll come up. On your iPads, on page 3, we have his email explaining it, and I can let Kevin take over and kind of explain what he's asking the board to do. It's regarding hours from an individual that has both licenses, Master Barber and a cosmetology license, and also has already a cosmetology instructor license. So they've gone through the educational piece and the testing within the cosmetology, and now is wanting a Master Barber instructor license. So what's in question is how many hours, thank you, Mr. Hart, come on in, yes. How many hours would the individual need to take crossing over the curriculum to the Master Barber program? So that's what is in question here. Go right ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Sure. Thank you. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
As our Senator just laid out, that definitely is the gist of it. Just trying to understand, because when I look in, nothing clear that says if you're an instructor, as if I use Barber instructor side is required 450 hours, so I do understand there's a gap there. My question is, would all 300 hours that have already been taken on the cosmetology instructor side be allowed towards that 450 hours? For either program. And so that exactly is what I wanted to approach the board to see in trying to set allowing that 300 hours as true educational experience where
Okay, any questions?
And if I can add, we did check with PSI. The exam is the same. So this individual, and if we set precedents moving forward, would not need to take the PSI exam again. They've already taken it, in essence. The issue is Barber instructors need 450. And so of the 300 that this person has taken as cosmetology instructor, how many, or possibly all, would be allowed to roll over? If we follow the 750 split between the licenses, as he said, we only allow half of that. That's 750 to move forward. So 150 of the hours of instructor could, without any problem, roll over to the barber. And then the individual would still need 300. That's kind of how Chris and I discussed it. If we followed it you know, there's no precedence or nothing that specifically touches on this, but that would be logical. The question is then what curriculum would the person need to really take? And so,
And I may add, because Roxanne and I, we've talked a couple times on this, one of the things that she kind of mentioned that, you know, my logic there, and I understand the half of it, because you've got to go back and do certain theory components of barbering if you come from cosmetology, whereas here, there's no additional education. All you're doing, if you're going through the barber course, you've gotten the material.
What reference books do you teach on the cosmetology side in the instructor program?
Gosh, I can't remember right off.
On the barber side, I know that it is the Milady Master Educator
I'm sorry.
type
Yes,
program.
everything's my lady for us,
Okay.
the master educator components. Yes.
Okay. Right,
Yes.
they have their own
Yes.
publication for
Yeah,
that.
it's the exact same.
I've not looked at the cosmetology in quite a while to see what the differences are in the two reference books.
Right.
There's no, it's the exact,
Same book,
exact same book they send you for cosmos they do for barber.
okay. You know that the test is exactly the same.
Right.
According to PSI, the test is, according to Ron, it is exactly the same. Is that correct?
Correct. So
it's-
that we wouldn't have to
Wouldn't have to
really
retest, yeah.
Exactly. It's a matter
Right.
of the hours if we're going to set precedents, and more individuals may want to do this. So would they need to take more hours, or have they really taken all the material already? And what would those hours be?
Okay, we've had a broad view of it. Now, questions?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I think he should be granted to do at least 150 hours because if you look at it, after they do 1,500 hours on the barbers, all of cosmetology, you will be good for half of that. So I see no reason why he shouldn't be granted to do half of this on this other one. So I think 150 hours, that'd be perfect. I think that'd be sufficient.
Is there already a precedent on the Cosmos side? Do they offer a reciprocal on that?
We don't currently have anyone that's done the two and asked for this waiver. And maybe they've done it and not asked for a waiver of this, and just went ahead and finished it right.
And from what I understand, they have done all of the this person has done all the requirements that's needed to have both of these
If the
licenses.
book is the same and the material's the
Right.
same, in essence, yes.
Okay.
On the barbering, as the theory part, you said that should be the same, but the practical part, as an instructor, you're going to be instructing in some of the work. And of course, there's a little different in the barbering, because you've got shaving and the razor and stuff like that. I would think maybe 150 more hours to cover those things that cosmetology do not cover. And I believe about 150 hours will be able to cover those things that that you don't get in the cosmetology. And since you already have 300 hours, I would suggest 150 hours to cover the other things.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, we need a motion.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Essentially, I think what we're looking at so far, though, is from the theoretical point of view. From the practical point of view, you're exactly right. There are some other things that have to be taught, so they have to be able to communicate.
All right. We need a motion.
I move that we suggest, 150 additional hours.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda are the applications for felony, and we're on page 5. Applications for Antonio Allison, Ronald Buchanan Sr., Johnny Graham, Cody Hartley, Clinton Johnson Sr., Richard Lockhart Sr., Terrence March, Jared Macy, Cornell Moon, and Nathaniel Rossi, All have felonies and have submitted for the board's approval the required information, disclosure from the student, and letter of recommendation from the school is submitted for your review. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we need a motion upon the completion and signature of an agreed order that they will be granted to test and have a license.
Question. On Clint Johnson from the Barber School in Jackson, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
It states they have 12 months, but I don't see anything about how many hours he completed.
All of these applicants have completed the needed 1,500 hours. Yeah, we don't submit them prior to that. Thank you, though, for the question.
I also have a question. Did we decide that, and this may be a question for our attorney, have we decided that we could increase the number of years of probation? Did we decide that?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Collins. You guys have broad discretion to set most any reasonable term or condition of licensure that you want to. The Barber statute provides for basically the entire range of options up to and including outright denial of licensure for a felony conviction. So as a legal matter, included within that is the potential for lesser conditions and or sanctions. So if the board believes it appropriate on either a general ongoing basis or on a case-by-case basis, depending on the specifics of the situation, the board is not permanently bound or wedded to the 2-year agreed license probation period. Could go a little bit higher than that if you so chose.
Thank you. And I asked the question because I'm concerned. There's no secret that I'm for allowing each person an opportunity to better themselves. But I am interested in Mr. Gerard Massey. I read his report here. And when we get ready to take a motion or whatever, I like to request we add him to 3 years probation. That's just that one I like to do. Okay.
And
I
a
don't
note,
know.
Mr. Massey is actually here if you would like to ask him questions. Generally, that's not the case, but he is, and so I'll leave that up to the board as well, if you do have additional questions for him. But if not, without a doubt, we can add that time.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to hear from Mr. Massey?
I would.
Okay.
How are y'all doing today?
All right.
Mr. Massey.
Any questions?
Yes, I asked, I was reading your report, Mr. Massey, and I was looking over it, and certainly there was a tragedy that happened. I don't see any other history of any other trouble you have been in, other than a few other small issues. Have you been out of trouble for the past 4 or 5 years?
Yes, sir. 7.
Okay, 7 years. So what are you doing now other than in school?
I was working at a restaurant in Char.
Okay.
I've actually got a job lined up in Chattanooga at White Oaks Barbershop.
Okay,
So I'm in the process of transitioning there.
okay. And you went to school at Barber Styling Program in Cooksville?
Yes, sir. Mr. Wayne's.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Wayne's been here before.
Yeah.
Good, very good. Okay. I was concerned about that, and I'm happy that you are here. Usually we don't have applicants to come who are applying to take the exam. And again, I mentioned earlier, there's no secret that I am an advocate for giving people a second chance. And by you showing here, it's saying volumes, speaks volumes for you, for me. So I will rescind the 3 years and just request that you be considered for the 2 years as everyone else is. Okay, so I think by you being here, says volumes for you. Okay, this industry, we love this industry, and to have someone to come up and say, look, I need a second chance, I'm impressed with that. I'm impressed with that. And if the board decides to give you the second chance, take it and do your very best. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, we appreciate you coming before the board.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, have you had a chance to look over everything? If so, we need a motion.
I'd like the motion that we approve all the applicants and along with the 2-year probation.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the ayes have it, motion carried.
Next on your iPads. Page 49 is a change of name for a school. The application is from Last Minute Cuts. They would like to change their name to Last Minute Cuts School of Barbering and Cosmetology. The letter there explains the situation. It is basically to comply with NACAS. They need the name to be the same with every document that they fill out. And right now with cosmetology, they have it one way, and with the barbering, they have it one way. And on their NACAS forms, it's differently. So they would go by the name of Last Minute Cuts School of Barbering and Cosmetology. They have already presented the request to the Cosmetology Board and been approved. And so that is the request in front of you today.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the new name change.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carried.
Application for reciprocity for master barber license from Florida for Carlos del Valle Valentin. Certification verifies the licensure by examination with an initial date of August 2012 and 1,200 hours. Recommendation is made that he take the Tennessee examination.
Is that practical and theory?
Yes, sir. He would be
Okay.
taking both.
All right. We need a motion.
I want to discuss this before the motion. He only had graduated with 1,200 hours.
That's correct. And in Florida, that's all you need to get their license. He's
Yeah,
only
but the state of
had.
Tennessee requires 1,500 hours.
That's correct. That's correct.
I think, just
Go ahead.
what I really, I'm sorry, but what I really believe, he need to go to school and get 300 hours. Because I think we'll open up a can of worms if we accept this, because, you know, people can go out of state and come back and with lesser hours and come into the state of Tennessee and start doing her. I just think he need to go to school for 300 more hours.
Okay, my question is on it. Back in '84, I'm thinking that Tennessee probably only had 1,200 hours at that particular time, the same time he graduated. I don't know if we have any way of checking it or not. That might make a difference. If Florida and Tennessee had same amount of hours during that particular time back in '84 when he graduated.
He didn't get his license until 2012. Yeah. So he doesn't have the work history, and he's short the hours. And
Okay. If you've had time to review, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that he can go back to school and pick up and get his extra 300 hours to complete his 1,500 hours.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
and just for my notes, to make sure it's 300 hours and then complete the examinations.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Now we're down to,
We're going to skip around just a little bit. If we could do, we're going to skip the legal report and do the consent orders. The consent orders are on page 60 of your iPads. We'll come back to the legal in just a minute. Total for the month of March is $3,000 presented before you. I need a motion to accept this.
Make a motion that we accept the consent orders.
do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
And toward the end of your iPads, under new business, we have new forms that have been created that I'd like to go over with you, have you take a minute to look at. As you know, we mentioned at the last meeting, all of our inspectors will be coming in. The date scheduled is April the 28th. They're coming in to get their iPads, transition into doing inspections on the iPads, hand shop owners by email their new inspection sheet. That's going to look great, and we discussed that. That transition has helped us speed up the process to a lot of our other forms being fillable. So the first form on your iPad right now is the actual application for license, if you will. Certain applicants do not get submitted by the Tennessee schools directly to PSI. These applicants would be those that have applied for reciprocity, and then the board tells them that they need to test. So those then would be submitted by our board staff. Applicants who have lapsed with the 3 years and not renewed and become invalid, they need to retest as well. Therefore, they need to fill out this form. Students coming from other states with a license, without a license in that state but just bringing their hours, also need this original application. And then those students who waited a long time after completing school need to be submitted many times by us because the school has been paid and completed with them. So all these applicants would be presented by our staff at the office to PSI. This consolidated form that you see on page 64 would be the form that we would use for all of those situations. It would be a PDF form that our staff can send out to the individual. It will be available also online for someone to complete and expedite the process. If you see anything on it that you've got a question, please let me know. Otherwise, once approved, these forms will be able to be released and completed online as well as sent by our staff. So we do need a motion if it's approved.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the form, the new forms.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Next is on page 65, the application for a shop. This has also gone through just a lot of cleanup. There's 3 steps on this application, and we've kind of numbered them to help the applicant follow them along, whether it's the first application for a shop or a change. That was very confusing on the previous one, and Betty takes care of this and often would have to call in and really walk them through the steps. So the section here at the bottom changes the form. It's clearer. Again, it's going to be a fillable PDF form available online, and we will have printed versions. A lot of our shop owners don't yet do the online process, so we'll have it both ways. Let me know if you've got any questions or changes that you see needed, and with several of you being shop owners, this will make more sense hopefully for you as well. So we've taken off both forms the affidavit required. We've checked with legal counsel, and as we move into technology and things being used differently, we're not going to use it on the application or on the shop form, and sometimes that delays the shop owners, and so hopefully this will be a good thing for them as well, not needing to have it notarized.
I like the form. I like the fees being on the form. That answers all questions.
Yes, yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's
Very
just
good,
little
Ms. Betty.
things sometimes, but yeah,
Very good, Ms. Betty. Thank you. That answers all questions.
good.
We need a motion on that one.
We do, because we're going to, again, get a number for this, and we will be printing that particular one. We don't ever want our shop owners to not get something if they need it, and they'll be the ones completing it. For the most part, we're hoping they're still going to do it online and do it, as a PDF.
Is it already online now?
Not until you give us the blessing,
Okay,
and then we'll
okay.
get a number on it. So pretty soon it will be. That's the
Okay.
good thing.
Okay, need a motion.
Motion that we accept this new form?
I
We got a
second.
motion, do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
And the last document on your iPads that I have before we go back to the legal is just a quick reminder. We had updated last year on October 15th meeting, the form for the school inspections was updated, and I just wanted you to have one more look at it because we're going to start using it. We need to, today at the end of the meeting, one of you is going to commit to inspecting the school we approved last year, and we can use this form already because it was approved. I'm not making any changes, but I wanted you to have a chance to view it again. This is the form that was approved and is going to be available again for the inspectors as of next month on their iPads. So as they inspect Barber schools, they're going to be using this form. And then here in the very near future, I'll have actual copies of paper for you all to take for your inspections. I don't have those printed yet. So again, this I didn't need a motion for, but I just wanted you to review it in case you had any questions. That'll be what you'll be using as you do schools this year. And I'm going to turn legal over to Chris. Let me get you back to the right page. You're going
Thank you, Roxana. Mr. President, we're going to go with the revised draft rules portion of the agenda first. You should have printed hard copies of those in front of you. Just wanted to have those back before you for another look. At the last board meeting, the board did vote to approve these rules and to proceed with a rulemaking hearing. There was one small amendment that the board requested, which is now incorporated. I'd like to turn your attention to page 3 of your printout under Rule 0200-01-.06. The underlined paragraph 6, and I will read that to you. Is when a master barber or barber instructor places his or her license into inactive status, such license may only remain in inactive status until the end of the current renewal period. The board may, at its discretion, waive this requirement for good cause shown and may attach any lawful conditions it deems appropriate to such a waiver. That's a long, fancy way of saying that whenever a master barber or instructor wishes to go inactive, for example, if they're 6 months into the 2-year period, their inactive period may only go, unless otherwise approved by the board, until the next time they're supposed to renew. If they wish to go inactive for another renewal period, then they will need to make that request to the board and demonstrate why they would like to be inactive for another renewal period, and then the board, according to the language of this rule, would have discretion to grant that or not as appropriate. So that's the only thing that is different from the rules that were presented to you, but because there was a small change, for this part, I will need a motion to approve these as amended and to continue moving forward with the rulemaking process. And then once that motion and vote is taken, I have a document to read into the record. It's called a regulatory flexibility analysis, which is required before rules go through the pre-review process for rulemaking hearing. I will simply read that into the record, and then we'll take a motion and a vote on that as well. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions about the rules, and if there are none, we'll need a motion and a vote to approve as amended and move forward with the rulemaking process.
All right, we need a motion for approval or disapproval.
I motion that we approve the amendments that have been presented today.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Mr. President, I'll now read for the record the regulatory flexibility analysis for the board's approval. The Regulatory Flexibility Act, Tennessee Code Annotated 4-5-401, requires that prior to initiating the rulemaking process pursuant to TCA 45202A3 and 45203A, all agencies shall review all proposed rules and the effect that the proposed rule has on small businesses. The Act requires that each agency shall employ a regulatory flexibility analysis utilizing regulatory methods that accomplish the objectives of the applicable statutes while minimizing any adverse impact on small businesses. The Act further provides that the agency shall consider, without limitation, certain methods of reducing the impact of the proposed rule on small businesses while remaining consistent with the health, safety, and well-being, and those methods are as follows. The extent to which the rule or rules may overlap, duplicate, or conflict with other federal, state, and local government rules, the clarity, conciseness, and lack of ambiguity in the rule or rules, the establishment of flexible compliance and/or reporting requirements for small businesses, the establishment of friendly schedules or deadlines for compliance and/or reporting requirements for small businesses, the consolidation or simplification of compliance or reporting requirements for small businesses, the establishment of performance standards for small businesses as opposed to design and operational standards required in the proposed rule, and the unnecessary creation of entry barriers or other effects that stifle entrepreneurial activity, curb innovation, or increase costs. The description of the proposed rule changes are as follows. The department intends to convene a rulemaking hearing as soon as possible, given the pre-approval process, in order to adopt amendments to the rules governing the Tennessee Board of Barber Examiners relative to license expiration dates for all categories of individual barber licenses, to the process of a licensee placing his or her license in inactive status, and various requirements applicable to barbershop and barber school applications. The amendments will also adopt a military applicant rule, which was necessitated by a legislative amendment in 2013 to provide an expedited licensure process for certain military personnel and the spouses of certain military personnel. The proposed amendment to Rule 0200-01-.01 would set forth a specific number of students required to be enrolled before a barber school could be granted a license. Further, the amendment would specify the number of hours necessary for a student to attend class each week in order to be considered part-time or full-time. The proposed amendment to Rule 0200-01-.06 would add the military applicant rule language to the board's rules. Additionally, it would provide clarification as to the expiration dates for all categories of individual licenses issued by the board, and to provide a mechanism by which a licensee could place his or her license into an active status if he or she chose to do so. The proposed amendment to Rule 0200-01-.07 would remove the requirement for a sanitary compartment in a barber station to contain a fumigant, because fumigants have the potential to constitute a public health and safety hazard if improperly stored or handled. The proposed amendment to Rule 0200-01-.10 would provide that all applications for a barbershop license or a barber school license expire within 90 days from the date the application is submitted to the board if the applicant fails to provide all information necessary to the board for the board to be able to make a decision as to the applicant's application. In this last part is the regulatory flexibility analysis, answering those questions I set forth earlier. It says that each agency shall employ a regulatory flexibility analysis utilizing regulatory methods that accomplish the objectives of applicable statutes while minimizing any adverse impact on small businesses. Item number 1, overlap, duplicate, or conflict with other federal, state, or local government rules. There will be no overlap, duplication, or conflict with other state, federal, or local rules. Clarity, conciseness, and lack of ambiguity in the rule or rules. The rules are clear in purpose and intended execution. The implementation of the proposed rule changes will increase clarity and conciseness and decrease ambiguity in the rules as a whole. Number 3, flexible compliance and/or reporting requirements for small businesses. These rules do not create any new compliance or reporting requirements for small businesses. Item number 4, friendly schedules or deadlines for compliance and/or reporting requirements. The proposed military applicant rule will expedite the licensure process for certain military personnel and in some cases for the spouses of certain military personnel. Otherwise, these rules do not set out further compliance or reporting requirements. Item number 5, consolidation or simplification of compliance or reporting requirements. There are no new compliance and/or reporting requirements as a result of these amendments. Item number 6, performance standards for small businesses. These rules do not set out operational or design standards. As such, there are no performance standards for small businesses as a result of this amendment. And finally, item number 7, barriers or other effects that stifle entrepreneurial activity, curb innovation, or increase costs. It does not appear that these amendments will erect barriers or have other effects which adversely affect or otherwise stifle entrepreneurial activity, curb innovation, or increase costs. That concludes the proposed regulatory flexibility analysis. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll need a vote, a motion and a vote to approve that relative to the rules, just authorized by the board to continue moving forward in the rulemaking process.
Okay, you've heard the reading. Now we need a motion.
A motion that we accept the report given by our attorney.
We have a motion to accept the report. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we will move on to the legal report, which I believe would be the
Page 55.
page 55. Thank you, Roxana. As you'll note, there are 10 items for the board's consideration on this report, and I will go through them one at a time.
Let me interrupt you just a second. We have our Assistant Commissioner with us. And Commissioner, would you like to say a few words? I'm good. Or just observe it? Thank you. Appreciate you being at the meeting. Now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 1, complaint number 2013-021-731. The board previously considered this complaint at its December 2013 meeting. The above referenced complaint alleges that the respondent fraudulently obtained his military barber license, master barber license, via reciprocity on the basis of military service. The investigation revealed that this respondent is now deceased. As such, the dismissal of this complaint is required. Item number 2, the respondent obtained his master barber license on the basis of reciprocity from Puerto Rico. During an audit of reciprocal licenses, the board was unable to confirm the respondent's claimed licensure from the Puerto Rico authorities. To date, the respondent has failed to respond to the complaint and has not complied with the board's request to provide accurate, complete documentation to confirm his eligibility for reciprocal licensure. The recommendation is a formal hearing for the revocation of respondent's license with authority to settle by consent order upon the suspension of the respondent's license until such time as the respondent provides the board with proof of eligibility for reciprocal licensure. Item number 3, complaint number 2014-00-1401. The description is identical to item number 2, as is the recommendation for disposition, which is a consent order for suspension until the respondent provides proof of eligibility. Item number 4, complaint number 2013-023-591. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed the respondent shop open to the public and had 3 fully equipped barber stations which did not have personal licenses posted. However, no services were being provided to the public at the time of inspection. As such, a letter of warning is recommended to remind the shop owner that master barber licenses must be posted at each station where barber services are being provided to the public. Item number 5, complaint number 2013-023-771. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed the respondent's shop allowing an individual with a suspended master barber license to provide barbering services to the public. Immediately upon being notified that the individual's license was suspended, the shop forced the individual to cease working and remove his tools from the shop. It does not appear that the shop's owner knew that the individual's license was suspended prior to the inspection, and this appears to be the first complaint received by the board against the respondent shop. Recommendation is a consent order with a $250 civil penalty. Item number 6, complaint number 2013-023-791. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed a shop open for business to the public with multiple workstations set up with no licenses posted in those stations. The respondent appears to have no prior disciplinary history with the board. Recommendation is a consent order with a $250 civil penalty. Item number 7. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed a shop open for business to the public with no shop license posted and an individual practicing barbering without his personal license posted. Additionally, the inspector observed several sanitation violations, including dirty floors and a dog in a shop which is not a service animal. The respondent appears to have no prior disciplinary history with the board. The recommendation is a consent order with a $750 civil penalty. Item number 8. Complaint number 2013-024-531. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed a shop open for business to the public with a manager on duty who was licensed as a cosmetologist but not as a master barber, and an individual practicing barbering with no ID and no master barber license posted. Additionally, the inspector observed several sanitation violations, including dirty floors, unclean tools, and multiple dirty exposed surfaces. The respondent appears to have no prior disciplinary history with the board. Recommendation is a consent order with a $750 civil penalty. Item number 9, the notice of violation, complaint number 2013-025101, alleges that an area inspector observed a shop open for business to the public with an unlicensed individual who appears to have finished school but not yet taken the exam, practicing barbering on a client. The respondent appears to have no prior disciplinary history with the board. The recommendation is a consent order with a $250 civil penalty. Item number 10 is different than most of what is presented. And in my time as board counsel, I've not done one of these, so this is a little bit different than your standard fare for complaints. In certain circumstances, the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act authorizes the board to summarily suspend the license of a master barber if it makes a finding that the health, safety, and welfare of the public is in jeopardy by continuing to have this person licensed. And now I will read the I'll read the description for the board, and if the board makes the finding as requested of the health, safety, and well-being of the public being in jeopardy, then at the conclusion, we will have Mr. President Loring sign a summary suspension order, and we will I will give some more information about the process at that time. Complaint number 2013-023-021. The board previously considered this complaint at its February 2014 meeting, and the board previously authorized settlement via consent order requiring payment of a civil penalty Mr. President, members of the board, I believe the board's expressed desire was for when Senator Belt was able to join us that we would pause the meeting and allow him to come address the board. So I will resume my description of the final item of the legal report when Senator Bell has had the opportunity to speak with you. So,
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Senator Bell, for appearing before the board.
Just got through just finished a 3-hour drive to get here this morning, so and I need to stand up for a little bit. Y'all doing well?
Doing well.
Yes.
Well, good. I appreciate you asking me to be here, and wanted to let you know that this idea of merging the board I've heard it discussed a couple times since I've been here, and I think I've been told it's been discussed for 30 years. And there was no issue with either board. Looking at both boards, we really think it will benefit both professions. I get my hair cut by a barber back home, a Marine, a guy who was in the Marine Corps for Bradley County, and he and I have been discussing this issue for a couple of years as he cuts my hair. And I really think I wouldn't have brought the idea forward if I hadn't. So I don't know what y'all may want me to say, but I'm perfectly willing to ask any or answer any questions that you may have.
Let's go down the line. Mr. Collins?
Thank you, Senator, for being with us today. And I know your time is very busy, so I'll be brief. And I do know about the 3-hour drive. I drive from Memphis to here, so yeah. I was concerned about the motivation behind the issue, and certainly I am aware that this issue has been talked about for years and years and years. My concern is will the citizens of the state be better served by both boards being combined? Because this board, of course, the Barber board, you're looking at over 200 years of experience, and so I think that speaks volumes when it comes to issues that is presented to this board. And I think that me personally, with the knowledge that we have, is more valuable than in dealing with the issues across this state. And for the citizens of this state dealing with barbering, as you well know, your barber who cuts your hair deals with a lot of I'm sure he knows more about sanitation, and that's critical in the barber shops. Okay, and so I think with us being barbers ourselves, we have the knowledge, and I think when you combine both boards, me personally, I don't think it would serve the citizens of this state well to do that, because you would not have the experience of barbering on that particular board. I know a young lady came on last meeting and explained your bill, and I think there will be maybe 2, maybe 3 representatives on that board from that would be barbers, and I just personally don't think it would serve the citizens of the state for both boards to be combined. Certainly, I thank you for your efforts to want to make things better, but I can't see where it would be better, and I'm still trying to understand your motivation behind it, simply because I'm concerned whether or not the people of this state would be better served by that, by both boards being combined. That was my issue, and I still stand on that as well. So, thank you.
I understand, and I guess my
Yes.
understand your position, but I would also say with 3 representatives on the board, I believe that,
Yes.
if I remember correctly, I believe that that their voices will be well heard, and I also have in any rule promulgated by that board now, it becomes law. That Barber's voice was not adequately heard on. If that happens, I still think there's adequate safeguards built. I understand your concerns, but I do think this.
Yes, and how many different ways do you think this would actually benefit the Barber Board and the cosmetology board? How many different ways do you think this would benefit them?
Well, I wish I had my talking points with me. I didn't bring them with me this morning. I've got them at my office, but I think it'll lead to fewer combined inspections. Again, I'll go back to the barber who cuts my hair. He has both licensed barber and cosmetologist in his shop. We're hoping that, and I'm not just hoping, I believe it'll lead to that shop only having to go through one inspection. You can have one inspector do both. I know that over the years, the barber boards had trouble paying the bills sometimes. And now it's brought up the last couple of years, but that's been an issue in the past. It's my hope that in the next couple of years, we can see license fees. Overlapping roles of both professions when you have a shop with dual better efficiencies for everybody in the profession.
If this board should combine, how many members would serve on the board?
I may have to look. 14 total, and those 14 break down to the representation of the barbers. There's probably 5 that represent the cosmetologists, and then each of the other manicurists have somebody on there. Just
So,
just 2 master barbers, 1 manicurist, 1 esthetician, 1 cosmetology or barber instructor, 1 cosmetology or barber shop owner. Those would be divided. Those, you wouldn't have a cosmetology shop owner and a cosmetology instructor, but you would have one or the other. So you have one. You wouldn't have both representing the same profession. 1 member shall be a cosmetology school license Barbers would actually have 4 members on the board. One public member holds a baccalaureate degree in education, one public member not engaged in occupational cosmetology, and barber profession.
So we would actually lose one off of this board, right?
Well, as I understand, I think there's 3 who's currently are serving whose term has expired. So technically, yeah, well, technically yes, but technically yes, there's 3, and I don't know which 3. Forgive me. I think 3 of you are serving beyond your term right now anyway.
Hey, Larry, any other questions?
No other questions.
Joe?
Okay, my view on it, first of all, to start off with, I don't agree with it, and then I give him a reason why. Even though the state is concerned about cutting costs, and you know, whenever you start cutting costs, you're cutting quality. The barber field has always been master barbers specialize in barbering, and when they cut the apprenticeship out and had them start coming out of school as master barber, you didn't come out with the quality barbers. When we had the apprenticeship back in the years, they had a chance to complete their schooling and then work with the master barber and then get the master license. It's like going to college. You don't come out of college in 4 years with a master license. You'd go back to become a master in order to be able to do your quality work and teaching or whatever you're doing. And barbering was set up the same way back in the day. And we had better barbers. Nowadays, we come out of school, even though they increased the hours to make you a master barber, but you still was lacking of certain things when you come out of school as a master barber. And you start cutting the cost. The state look at how to cut the cost in order to do certain things. You're taking something from the barber field. And even as the cosmetologist and the barber merge, there's a lot different between the barber and the cosmetologist. And so even like back in the day, you didn't have curling hair, manicuring, all that's been added to barbering. Barbers don't even need that, but that's been added to the barber curriculum. We don't need that as a barber. Leave it in cosmetology. That's the way we've always thought, and the cosmetologists need to keep that in their field. And when barbering and cosmetology have been merging their work down through the years, and all this said that the barber wasn't doing much work because he could do a coloring or a manicure or something to keep his business going. But if you're a barber, you know, you're going to get the work done, and if you're not, you can do something else. But most of the barbers that's been in the barber field and good at it, they haven't been worried about the work. And I've been doing it been master barber for over 50-some years. And I know that I have put out quality work. I never had to worry about any business. And if you're good at what you're doing and try to do your job right, you're not going to worry about it. But I'm totally against merging barbering and cosmetology because it is a different in the field. And if you check with some of the schools, the instructors, and the barbers and the cosmetologists out there, you will find out they could give you some viewpoints on why they disagree. You might have some that agree, but when you're trying to cut costs, like I say, people want to save some money in order to try to make a little bit more money, but that's not giving you quality work.
Hey, Ron?
Senator Bell, thank you for coming and talking to the board this morning. We appreciate you very, very much. At the previous board meeting, I believe I have expressed at least some basic support for the idea. I have to tell you that my support comes from thinking of the general public and thinking of the long-term health and future of the board. On a personal level, my personal opinion is I have to say I agree with these other gentlemen. personally and as a master barber, I'm not so certain that individually that it would be good for the individual barber, but for the whole, it could be. One of the ideas you've expressed, though, is that this has a great deal to do with saving money for the public. Having read the financial report from the committee, it appears that there's about a $2,800 savings that possibly will be generated. If there's other, and I believe the report said that the savings or expense would be negligible. But I'm wondering what would be the expense of actually joining the boards. You're talking about a lot of additional printing costs and things like that. I'm sure that was all taken care of in the financial committees. But if it's strictly from a financial point of view, I'm not sure that there's such a great urgency to do that. In the makeup and balance of the board, in a 14-member board with 4 members being from the barber side, it seems a little bit unbalanced. My statement before, I believe, had been that for the board, for support, the board would need to be able to maintain its integrity and its traditions and its ideas of what master barbers were. That possibly can be kicked around a little bit without a little more balanced approach, I believe. I still can support the basic idea, but I do have some concerns about it.
Okay.
Could I respond just quickly?
Sure.
Thank you. And I would say you're right. The actual fiscal note to the state, I believe, was about $2,800. What we're talking about the savings of a long-term savings to the profession, and not necessarily a barber who's working back in Cleveland, Tennessee, or working in Memphis. Again, both professions, not just cosmetology and barbers, but also the other professions that are listed in the, still going to have their own unique licensure. You're still going to come up together with the board and decide what those requirements are going to be. And I'm going to go back to something Mr. Jones said earlier about apprenticeships, and I think that's something that also people in some of the other regulated professions we have, we need to open up more opportunities for apprenticeships. I think is probably a pretty big salon. He said he's got 60 employees, and he was telling me the same thing that Mr. Jones just said. We've got too many people coming out of school after 50 perform cosmetology. His is a cosmetology shop, and we need. And he was. I believe you'll see at least that be an issue that they're going to take.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, I'm the public member.
All right, Mr.
and I qualify under that 21 years of age. And so, but I've been on the board probably longer than anybody, about 30 years. And Senator Hicks got me appointed. But, and of course, my big concern has always been health and sanitation. And so many people do not realize that in a barber shop, if the sanitation and the health is not addressed properly, you can come out with just about any kind of disease known to man. And I usually quote a situation. A good friend of mine was a leading surgeon in the South. He happened to stop by the hospital on a Sunday afternoon, and just to show you how things can fall through the crack, they had an emergency to come in. Well, they didn't check this lady out thoroughly, he just happened to be there on a Sunday afternoon, taking care of some other business. They called him in to do the surgery because of such an emergency, and the ER man, he was out. And so this doctor, he, as I say, things fell through the crack. He didn't have his mask on, didn't have his goggles, and when he made the incision, one drop of blood flew in his eye. Unbeknown, because the test hadn't been run, this person had AIDS. 6 months later, this surgeon was dead. So that's why I stress health and sanitation above everything else. And I appreciate your input on the boards, and I know we all appreciate you taking your time to appear before the board.
Well, and I would say, I think it'll be the goal. I think the goal of stressing health and sanitation and the safety of the consumer, that's been a priority for this board. Both professions as a whole, and I know we may not.
Any further questions? If not, Senator Bell. Oh, excuse me. A lady in the audience back here.
And this could be.
Looking for more money out of our pockets where we're already struggling enough. If we do merge, would you allow for students to get their dual license?
Require you to pay more money. I'm trying to figure that out.
Yes. Question
Okay.
is, if we do merge, if you're gonna combine the two,
That would be up to the board. That's something the board, the combined board.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. We appreciate your time. Now, the legal report will continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. When Senator Bell joined us, we were on item number 10, and so I will just start from the beginning on that because I hadn't read very much of it. This is for item number 10 on the legal report, complaint number 2013-023-021. And as I was explaining earlier, in certain circumstances, usually pretty severe ones, the Tennessee Uniform Administrative Procedures Act authorizes the board to summarily suspend, which means suspend right now on the spot, a master barber license if it makes a finding that the health, safety, and welfare of the public would be jeopardized by the licensee continuing to be licensed. And so in the process of reviewing this complaint, it appears that that may well be the case, and so this complaint is being submitted to the board as a request for summary suspension of this individual's license, and I will explain the process of how that looks afterwards if the board approves the summary suspension. The board previously considered this complaint at its February 2014 meeting and previously authorized settlement via consent order upon payment of a $1,000 civil penalty by the respondent and upon placement of the respondent's master barber license on probation for 2 years from the date the consent order was executed. The complaint alleges that the respondent, who was an instructor at a barber school at all times relevant to this complaint, sexually harassed the complainant. According to the complainant, who at all relevant times to this complaint was a student in barber school serving as a model for a facial in a class being taught by the respondent instructor. The complaint alleges that on multiple occasions during the aforementioned facial, the respondent repeatedly touched the complainant's breast with both hands without her consent. The respondent did not respond in any way to this complaint. Upon further consideration of existing evidence and newly discovered evidence, it appears that the allegations in this complaint are more serious than originally believed. It is also noteworthy that the school at which the licensee was employed at the time terminated the employment of the instructor upon this incident being reported to the school. As such, it is recommended that the board authorize a summary suspension of the respondent's master barber license effective immediately, that the respondent be provided the opportunity to participate in an informal conference relative to the necessity of the summary suspension within 7 days of this meeting as required by law, and that the board authorize a formal hearing for the revocation of the respondent's master barber license as soon as it may be scheduled. In the alternative, the respondent may sign a consent order agreeing to the voluntary revocation of his master barber license, which would render a formal hearing unnecessary. As with the previous consideration of this complaint, board member Mr. Jones will recuse himself from the consideration of and voting on this matter due to the potential personal knowledge of the situation. The recommendation is for the board to summarily suspend the respondent's master barber license, to authorize a formal hearing for the revocation of the respondent's master barber license, and grant authority to settle by consent order upon the respondent's agreement to a voluntary revocation of his master barber license. That concludes the description of the legal report, and at this time I'll be happy to entertain any questions as to item number 10 or any other items on the report.
I'll go back to number 2 and 3.
Yes,
they don't
sir.
have proof of their hours. I don't think they should be entitled to get a license. That's on item number 2 and item number 3. They had the same thing. They don't have proof of hours.
I hear what you're saying, Mr. High, and I in general, agree with you in principle. However, it appears that both of these respondents have been granted licensure. So once a license is granted, it's a vested property right, and certain procedures have to be followed in order to, if the license is to be taken away or limited or anything like that, then again, there are certain procedures that have to be followed, and that's why it's come to the board through the normal complaint process and with the recommendation for suspension pending proof of eligibility. Now, this is not the same as item number 10. Just because the board authorized these 2 consent orders doesn't mean that these folks will be suspended immediately. It means that they will get a consent order like anyone else, and if they choose to respond, then we'll see what their response is to that consent order, whether they provide proof of eligibility at that time. And then if they do, it's possible that these matters could come back before the board for further consideration depending on the responses received.
Okay, any further questions regarding the legal report?
I have one.
No.
Number 6.
Yes, sir.
You stated that the violation alleged that the person had workstations set up for a shop that was open for business.
Yes, sir.
And there was no one working in those stations. Is it that they didn't have anybody to work there? Were they waiting to get somebody there? Would it be proper to find them even if it was nobody at those stations?
Well,
there's no proof that anybody was even working there. It may be possible that they was waiting to get somebody. Is that?
That's entirely possible, Mr. Jones, and I'll be candid with you. The notice of violation form was not 100% crystal clear on that matter. So if the board would wish to amend the recommendation on number 6 to a letter of warning, which would be very similar to, I'm sorry, I'm looking for other ones. Item number 4, just to caution the shop, hey, look, just because this notice of violation saw this, but maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But if you're going to have people in these stations, you got to have license posted, and if they're going to be working and available to the public, perhaps a letter of warning might be in order to caution them accordingly. So I would be more than open to an amendment to that recommendation if that would be your recommendation.
That's something what I was thinking of, because if it didn't have anybody working there, possibly he was waiting to get somebody to work in those stations and just got it set up. I don't know what the situation was, but if you could, I would recommend letter warning so that they could get somebody there to work in those stations.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I have made that note, and we will take it up when we vote to approve the legal report.
Okay, any further discussion on the legal report?
I had a question on number 9.
Yes, sir.
Now, this appears to be an unlicensed person who had finished school but not taken the exam.
Yes, sir.
How will this affect them in their upcoming examinations if that person chooses to move forward?
As of this point, not at all, unless there's a complaint down the road against this person, which don't know that there is at this time. But then again, if it's a brand new complaint, I may not have seen it yet because it just may not have cycled through the process. But the short answer is, if there's a complaint open against that individual, then that person would most likely have to address the allegations of that complaint prior to being granted licensure. But if there is not a complaint open, then it would not affect them in any way.
Okay, any further questions? If not, we need a motion to approve or disapprove the legal report.
I can make a motion that we approve the legal report.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? And this will be amending the one that Joe brought up.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried.
And Mr. President, before we leave this matter, now that the board has voted to approve the summary suspension as described on the report, I will need a signature from you on the order of summary suspension, which I will bring you momentarily. The other thing that I will need from the board is some feedback on when the board might be available next Monday, March the 31st, because the statute under which the summary suspension proceeds grants the licensee an opportunity, if they so choose, to have what's referred to as an informal conference with the board within 7 days of today. Now, the sole issue to be considered at an informal conference, if requested by this respondent, is whether the health, safety, and welfare of the public was endangered by continued licensure. It would not be a formal hearing to deal with the merits of the allegation of the complaint. So because that is a requirement of the statute, I would request that the board members, if you don't know right now, that's fine, but maybe get with Roxana and after you've had a chance to look at your schedule and get us a time, and we'd really need it today, to be honest with you, so that we can go ahead and get this order out to the licensee, because it's got to be sent today as well. And it would be a telephone informal conference, so it would not require a return trip here a week from now from any of you. It would just be, we'd get a conference room and a conference call line and give everybody the number and then call in at the appropriate time. There's a possibility that the respondent may not request that informal conference within 7 days, and if that does not happen, then there won't be one, and it will proceed through the normal disciplinary informal hearing process. But if that is requested, then we have to be prepared to hold that informal conference in the event that this person asks for it. So if the members of the board happen to know or have a time or thoughts about next Monday for such a conference call, that would be great. If not, you're more than welcome to get back with Roxana by close of business today and let her know what the time would look like.
What do you want us to report right now? Like, I'll be available anytime if I'm still here.
Okay. I'm just, if the other board members happen to know what their schedules look like for next Monday.
If we can go down the line and let Roxanne know.
Oh,
When you'd
so
be
do we have an
available on
opening?
Monday.
Do we have a beginning time that would be good? I mean, I just want to know what would be the earliest we could do it. That's what I need to know.
Probably the earliest we'd want to do it is about 10 a.m.
Okay, that's fine with me. 10 o'clock.
Mr. Hyde?
It's fine with me.
Fine with me. Joe?
What's that date? Next month,
March 31st,
31st.
next
This
Monday, a
Monday.
week from today. Well, Mr. Jones, you won't be able to participate
yeah.
anyway because
Right.
you're recused, so
yeah, okay.
we'll move on to Mr. Gillihan.
10 o'clock's fine.
All right, so it will be in a conference room to be determined. Roxana will take care of the reservations for that. But it'll be 10 a.m. next Monday, and you'll be provided the information ahead of time to call in and the access code for the conference call if it is needed. If we have not heard from the respondent by the close of business on Friday, then it would not appear then that there would be an informal conference, and if there's not, we'll have Roxana notify you of that as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. President, may I present this order to you for signature?
Not a second mortgage, is it?
Right on that line. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, does that conclude the legal report?
Yes, Mr. President, that concludes our legal report, and I've got nothing else for business.
Okay, we've got before we adjourn, we've got a lot of visitors with us, and I see a school owner back there. Would you like to say a few words?
President, gentlemen, ladies, this is most,
Yeah.
we're going to take your attorney as well. She does a great job, and we need one. So, I'm glad that they came today, especially with being able to see what goes on. We try to impress on them that you guys are real, that that they are capable of coming and speaking with you for their business and better their industry, and that not be afraid of it, that you are human beings that are kind. So I'm glad that today was a good day for them to come and see the actual process with this. No matter who's standing in front of you, is very commendable. So.
Well, thank you for bringing the students. We appreciate an audience because we think it expands the knowledge of the operation of the board, and you're always welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Now, any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
We need a second.
That's second.
We got a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, I believe Roxanne, you want to take up,
I kind of wanted to take.
These
I
these
didn't
are
want
the
to bring that
minutes.
information up because it's already taken off the boat.
They need to sign that.
That law was already rescinded, so I didn't.
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't even want to bring
I
it
thought about
up.
the same thing.
Right.
Oh, you made it up?
Good to see you.
doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Yes, sir.